On November 29th, 1970, deep in a remote valley outside Bergen, Norway, a father and his two daughters were on a hike when they discovered something that stopped them in their tracks. Hidden among the rocks of a place called Isdalen were the burnt remains of a woman. Around her were strange objects, bottles, burnt personal items, and clues that seemed to have been carefully stripped of anything that could reveal who she was. Within days, police would uncover suitcases linked to her, filled with wigs, cash, coded notes, and evidence that this woman had been travelling across Europe under multiple identities. This is the eerie, true story of the Isdal Woman, Norway's most enduring mystery. Hello, I'm Ellie Calderwin. Isdalen, or Ice Valley, lies near Bergen, surrounded by steep slopes and harsh terrain. But locals had another name for it too: the Death Valley. The nickname came from the area's grim reputation. It was associated with accidents, terrifying old tales, and a lingering sense of unease for those who visited. On November 29th, 1970, that reputation became even darker. As the man and his two young daughters were hiking, they noticed a bad smell and had barely looked around for long before they stumbled on a terrifying sight. Among the rocks lay the body of a woman. She had been badly burned, especially around the front of her body, and her face was so damaged that immediate identification was impossible. There were several scattered belongings near her: bottles, clothing items, an umbrella, jewelry, and other objects that looked as if they would help investigators figure out who she was. But they did not. Almost every identifying mark from each item had been removed. Labels had been cut out. Tags had been scrubbed away. Anything that might have pointed to a name, a shop, a country, a life, was gone. It was as if someone had taken extraordinary care to make sure this woman could not be traced. Or perhaps the woman had done it herself. The police quickly opened a major investigation. At first glance, the scene raised more questions than answers. Was this suicide? Murder? Espionage? An accident that had somehow become almost impossible to explain? Nothing about the setting felt ordinary, and as the police would discover, nothing about the woman was ordinary either. Once investigators began examining the body more closely, the mystery deepened. The autopsy found that the woman had died from a combination of barbiturates and carbon monoxide poisoning. Soot in her lungs suggested she had still been alive during the fire. Investigators also found evidence that she had taken a very large quantity of sleeping pills. But none of these bits of information made things clearer. Rather, the case became stranger. There was no way to identify the woman. No passport, no family coming forward, no missing person report that fit neatly enough to solve the puzzle. Even her appearance seemed elusive. Witnesses who had seen her alive described her as attractive and well-dressed, with dark hair and a guarded manner. Some said she spoke German. Others thought they heard French. Some believed she spoke English imperfectly. One detail that came up more than once was that she sometimes appeared to be wearing wigs. But 3 days after her body was found, police uncovered more evidence linked to the woman. At Bergen railway station, they found 2 suitcases filled with wigs, stylish clothes, makeup, glasses, maps, and even currency from multiple countries. But again, the labels and identifying marks had been removed from the belongings inside the luggage too. At first, the writing seemed meaningless. Letters, numbers, short combinations that looked like nonsense. But once the code was broken, police realized they were looking at a travel log. The woman had been moving through Norway and Europe in a deliberate pattern, checking in and out of hotels, shifting cities, changing names, and leaving behind a trail that seemed almost designed to confuse anyone trying to follow it. She was no longer just an unidentified victim. She was a woman living under multiple identities. As police dug through hotel records, the scope of the deception began to emerge. The woman had stayed in several Norwegian cities, including Oslo, Stavanger, Trondheim, and Bergen, and had also travelled abroad, including to Paris. At different hotels, she used different names, different birth dates, and different cover stories. But one thing appeared again and again. She often claimed to be Belgian. The registration forms were typically filled out in German or French. Among the names associated with her were aliases such as Geneviève Lancier, Claudia Tielt, Claudia Nielsen, Alexia San Merches, Vera Jarle, Fenella Lorck, Elizabeth Lienhauer. 7 identities, maybe more. And none of them led to a confirmed, real person. Witnesses at hotels remembered her because she stood out. She was elegant, reserved, careful. Some said she changed her appearance. Some noticed that she kept mostly to herself. Others recalled that she seemed wary, like someone who never fully relaxed. At one hotel, staff said she stayed in her room a great deal. When she left, she paid in cash. There were also strange details about how she behaved in hotel rooms. She was reported to be unusually private and methodical. Later writers and investigators would wonder whether some of her habits suggested fear, surveillance awareness, or tradecraft. None of that could be proven. But the pattern fed a theory that would come to dominate the case. What if she was a spy? Because this was not just Norway. This was Norway in 1970. A NATO country. A Cold War frontier. A landscape where secrets had consequences. To understand why the spy theory took hold so strongly, you have to understand the tension of the time. In 1970, Europe was divided by ideology, intelligence networks, and suspicion. Norway, though peaceful on the surface, occupied a strategically important place in the Cold War world. Any unexplained foreign traveller moving near sensitive areas could attract interest, especially if they seemed to be hiding who they were. And according to later reporting and re-examinations of the case, some of the Isdal Woman's movements appeared to line up with locations connected to sensitive military activity, including areas associated with tests of Norway's Penguin missile program. This has never proved she was a spy, but it gave the theory a lot of weight. Then there was the way she travelled. Multiple identities, frequent hotel changes, cash payments, minimal luggage, but carefully selected items, no clear personal history, no traceable family, no obvious reason for being in those places. If this were fiction, it would almost seem too perfect, but it was real. And the further investigators went, the more the case seemed to resist ordinary explanations. Could she have been an intelligence operative moving under deep cover? A courier? An informant? Someone involved in surveillance? Or was the spy angle simply the most seductive explanation for a woman who valued secrecy and died under baffling circumstances? The final confirmed stretch of the Isdal woman's life feels like something half seen through fog. Her last known confirmed sighting was in Bergen, where she checked out of the Hotel Horderheimen on November 23, 1970, from room 407. She paid in cash and asked for a taxi. After that, her movements disappeared into a gap of days that has never been fully explained. Her body was found on November 29th. That gap between when she was last seen alive and when her body was found matters, because somewhere between the hotel and the valley, something happened. And it may be the key to the entire case. Years later, the taxi driver from the hotel claimed that after picking up the woman, another man joined them on the way to the station. Another witness later said that days before the body was found, he saw a woman matching her description walking in the hills, followed by two men. He described her as appearing distressed or resigned, as if she wanted to speak but chose not to. And that is what makes the final days of the Isdal woman so unnerving. There are shadows around them, gaps, missing faces, unconfirmed companions, the sense that she may not have been alone and may not have been safe. Officially, Norwegian authorities leaned towards suicide. The sleeping pills, the fire, the secluded location. All of it allowed investigators to frame the death as self-inflicted. But many people have never been satisfied with that conclusion, because the case contains details that feel fundamentally at odds with a simple suicide narrative. Why remove labels from all her belongings? Why travel under so many names? Why carry coded notes? Why was there so much effort to obscure her identity long before death? Why did witnesses place her with or near unknown men? And if she had taken a heavy dose of barbiturates, how physically capable would she have been of managing every aspect of the scene by herself? For decades, the Isdal woman remained trapped in the evidence of 1970. Then modern forensic techniques began to offer new hope. After the case was revisited, scientists used isotope analysis of her teeth to estimate where she may have spent her early life. The results suggested she was likely born around 1930, give or take a few years, possibly in or near Nuremberg, Germany, and may have moved as a child toward the French-German border region. The analysis also supported earlier suspicions that she may have been educated in a French-speaking environment. That was a major shift. For years, many assumed she was younger. Now, experts believed she may have been older than the witnesses had guessed. Perhaps a woman deliberately styling herself to appear younger, changing her hair, language, and presentation, depending on where she was and who she was meeting. So after all these years, what do we know? We know she existed. We know she traveled. We know she hid herself. We know she died in one of the strangest unsolved cases in European history. But we still do not know her real name. And maybe that is the most disturbing part of all. Not that she died mysteriously, but that she lived mysteriously too. Hello, I'm Ellie Calderwin.